our highly skilled team are focused on bringing you the optimal experience.
So many answers we may never know. Too many questions, get on with the show. No time for the chorus, only this verse. It's Kubrick's universe.
Open the podcast doors, Hal.
It's Kubrick's Universe, the Stanley Kubrick podcast.
Hello, 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 hello. And hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new episode of Kubrick's Universe. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm your host and humble narrator, Jason Furlong. Now, for today's episode, we have a really cool and unique guest for you. I'm referring, of course, to Mr. Derek Lyons. Now, Derek has always been fascinated with the movies, and as a teenager, he attended a local theatrical school in London. None other than British acting legend Sir Nigel Hawthorne encouraged Derek to follow his path and even sponsored his application to join British Actors Equity back in the mid-70s. Derek's first film job, unbelievably, was, drumroll please, Star Wars: A New Hope, which happened to be filming at Shepperton and Elstree Studios back in 1976. Derek got two quite significant roles in that little film. Derek has also appeared in Quadrophenia, Flash Gordon, Superman 2, 3, and 4, Ragtime, Britannia Hospital, Best Picture winner Gandhi, Krull, a guilty pleasure favorite of mine, Curse of the Pink Panther, Greystoke, Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes, Val Kilmer's first film, Top Secret, Life Force, another guilty pleasure, an inimitable classic, Absolute Beginners, Mona Lisa, and the groundbreaking Who Framed Roger Rabbit, not to mention Indiana Jones 3 and 4, and a bunch of Bond movies. Pretty much every major film shot in the UK in the 80s and 90s. I mean, Derek's film credits really do read like a best of British films list from that era. Now, I know that Derek must have hundreds of stories, great ones, about his times with the likes of Lindsay Anderson, Elizabeth Taylor, Christopher Lambert, John Schlesinger, Ken Russell, Robert Mitchum, Quentin Crisp, Anthony Hopkins, Pierce Brosnan, Peter Cushing, Telly Savalas, who lived in my hometown for many years, hey, baby, Sir Laurence Olivier, and Bob Hoskins. I mean, just to name a few. But as this is Kubrick's Universe, today we're going to be talking with Derek about his time working for Stanley Kubrick while filming The Shining. Hey, Derek, thanks so much for giving us some of your time, man. It's a real pleasure to have you with us. How you doing? Glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, and thank you, Stephen, for inviting me on your podcast. It's very, very kind of you.
Pleasure's all ours, man. Thank you. I'm just going to launch in with an easy question, an obvious one, which is how did you come to work with Stanley Kubrick on The Shining?
Well, having started in the film business as a supporting artist, being an actor, so obviously I regard myself as an actor first of all, and obviously supporting artist, which technically means I'm supporting the main artist or whatever. So it goes on like that.
Right,
well, what happened? I worked on Star Wars: A New Hope, which was called the Star Wars at the time.
Right.
And then I took a year and a couple of years out and worked in the music business for Record Mirror and Sounds, some kind of big music papers in the UK.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, through the punk movement. I knew most of the bands like the Pistols, the Stranglers, Eddie and the Hot Rods.
Right on.
Yeah, I met them all. Joe Strummer, I knew fairly well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, obviously it seems like I'm name dropping, but it's all true, And then
Fascinating.
what happened is I decided to go back in the business again. And I did 3 films in 1978. And I forget which order. It could have been Quadrophenia first, then The Shining. And there was another one, which I can't remember. I think it's an IMDb. But what happened is my agent at the time, a guy called David Edwards, at my agent at Central Casting, and obviously folks got to understand the Central Casting, as like America, employed people like the American one had Tom Cruise at one point. In England, UK, we had people like Roger Moore, Sean Connery, and many others who started at Central Casting, and then their career took off. So I just used it as a vehicle to get work. So anyway, I got this call. They said, "Oh, you'd be great as one of the hotel staff at the Overlook Hotel. We'll send you down and get someone to look at you at Elstree Studios." So I went down to Elstree Studios. It wasn't too far away from where I lived in North London. And when I got there, I was greeted by one of the costume designer people, plus I think it was Kubrick's assistant. So I was greeted, and I remember walking into Elstree. I had to go through security. wasn't as bad as it is now with security getting to studios, but went there to sign my name, and then walked through. And obviously the studio's quite different now. And I remember going up to the back of the studios. Was obviously Star Wars actually was what's the word for it, was based there. In fact, when I worked on Star Wars, we filmed at Shepperton Studios. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I went to the wardrobe department. This guy greeted me, and then they got me in the costume, which was one of the bellboy, I used to say in America, bellhop costumes. And I remember on the left-hand side, it had the kind of circular badge which said Overlook Hotel. And I remember them taking some Polaroids of me, and then just asked me a few questions. I can't remember the whole questions really, and then we said we'll get back to you. So, funny enough, when I was tried the costume on, in my left hand pocket, I felt something in the pocket, and I thought, what the hell is this? So I pulled it out, and it was actually one of the spare badge, like a patch which goes on the uniform. So I said, and the costume guy who was on, I recognised him from, I think it was where I worked on either Star Wars, or I recognised the guy. I said to him, can I have this? Oh yeah, take it. So I took it, and years later I put it on a army shirt I had for years.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And sadly, my ex-girlfriend, who
I knew it.
My ex-girlfriend, I left the shirt at her apartment. And this is also along with my Bruce Lee original Enter the Dragon, a massive poster. I left it.
No.
And she gave the shirt to her new boyfriend.
I knew it. Oh, man. No.
If I had it now, that would be worth a fortune.
Oh, God, that's crushing.
Really true. Yeah, that's sad, But, yeah, that was it. So anyway, then I got the call, and I worked on The Shining at Elstree Studios for 2 weeks. I didn't know who was in it at that point. I didn't know Jack Nicholson was in it until I arrived. And because I'm kind of I like to explore, and I actually walked around the big scene where they did when Jack goes up to the barman. I think it was in Blade Runner, the same guy. I'm not sure if it's the same.
Joe Turkel. Joe Turkel, yeah.
Same person, yeah. And and then also the other guy was in the bathroom scene, that British actor.
Philip Stone.
Yeah, I worked with him a few years later on Flash Gordon, because he's in that as well.
Oh, no, that's right. That's right. I forgot that.
Actor, yeah, that guy. You ever check it out. Anyway.
I love Flash Gordon, but go on, yeah. I just forgot that. Yeah, cool.
I'm in that new documentary, which is just released, which was shown in America last year, called Life After Flash, directed by a friend of mine, and she, So I'm in about 2 or 3 minutes of the new documentary on that. It it follows Sam Jones's life, and it interviews, Peter Wingard, the late Peter Wingard, who I knew, and Brian Blessed, and many other actors.
What has life after Flash been like for me?
When I first saw Flash Gordon, it changed my life.
Flash!
I love everything about Flash Gordon.
I remember every single bit about that film.
I would have been pretty little the first time I saw Flash Gordon.
I love when they put the hand in the thing and the bug bit on. That frightened me as a kid.
You can see why George Lucas wanted to make a Flash Gordon movie.
You can see Flash Gordon's fingerprints all over Star Wars.
Flash Gordon's tank top.
This is a Hawkman blaster.
Immediately, the Queen chorus comes right in.
And I already had this thing in my head, this sort of boom, 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 boom.
It is a comic strip, and therefore they are pretty one-dimensional.
You have to care for the character.
I think I remember being quite nervous about it.
It was fun.
I couldn't breathe.
The only comic book I saw was at Dino's house.
Melody, it's Dino.
So we look around for 1 year. No star really can play Flash Gordon.
Well, you always knew when Dino was there.
My advice was, not to get involved in a confrontation with Dino.
He lost his family. He lost his place in Hollywood.
Sam is a man who struggled.
Who wants to hire a bitter, angry actor who's blaming everybody else?
And I just got up in his face. I said, stop it. Stop it.
All the tabloids are coming out, saying, oh, where's Flash Gordon been?
And we had little kids, and I said, you've got to do something else.
Our weapons are usually concealed.
It's harder for them to go and explore other characters because everybody just wants what they love.
A lot of people say, oh, you got to separate your personal life from your movie life. I don't know how you do that.
They became those characters, and they were iconic to the world.
It's much better to be typecast than to be miscast.
Sam is the definitive Flash Gordon. No one could play it better.
It's one of those iconic roles that won't. They stand the test of time.
People dying on their deathbeds. Please say Gordon's alive.
Gordon's alive! That's how we roll, 61. All right.
I have to just get this in. Gordon's alive, live. Oh my gosh.
Gordon's alive!
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you went there with me.
So I arrived on set. Went costume. It was quite early in the morning. I suppose I had to be there by 7.
Mm-hmm.
Get my costume on, have a cup of tea as we normally do. You have little tea breaks and everything.
Right.
Okay, used to anyway. And then I'd walk on set, and I walked on the set of the Overlook Hotel. Now, obviously, the facade of the Overlook Hotel was at the back on the big green area, which is now locked down now, and I think they've got a Tesco's there now, some supermarket there now. But on the back, they had the actual Overlook Hotel. They built the whole thing. I mean, it's unbelievable, just the facade of it. But it was really well made. I mean, the British
craftsmen, the craftspeople there, second to none.
Well, that's why Steven Spielberg and Lucas filmed a lot of the stuff here. Anyway. Oh yeah, then we get on set in the actual interior, which is one of the studios which was built there, of the interior of the Overlook Hotel, and I walked in, and we were just walking around. None of the actors were on set at that point. We were just sitting around in the seats in the Overlook reception, and I remember, just a few friends. My friend Kathy Monroe, who plays Zukas in Star Wars, we became friends from that film. And she has a line of dialogue in that, because Stanley actually came up to me and a few others came up to me, and he said, I can't do his voice, but he said, are you a member of Equity? And I said, no, I'm not. At that point, I wasn't. Then he went up to another person. Are you a member of Equity? Then up to Kathy. Are you a member of Equity? And she said, yes. Oh, and there's one thing when I'm walking in, and I walk in past, and I had to look a little bit different, dishevelled, and I've got this kind of big warm coat on, and taking these chairs into the Overlook Hotel, taking stuff from. We're closing down the hotel for the winter, and what was in there? So Kathy, basically, as I walk in, and Kathy goes up to. He played James Bond in a version. Barry Nelson, yes, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Barry Nelson, and he goes, and she says, hello, Mr. Goodbye, or hello, Mr. Torrance, and he says, he reacts to that. So that's Kathy. I've actually would have done that line if I would have said I was Equity, but sadly I wasn't at that point.
Oh, no kidding. Wow, that's interesting. That line would have gone to you.
Yeah, it could have been.
Well, that still gives us plenty of time to go over everything first.
Bye, Mr. Allman.
Bye.
I mean, I remember being a young lad and thinking, gosh, she's really pretty. You know?
Yes. Her and her sister both worked on it, and they actually, Kathy and her sister Anne, used to go across, Claire, sorry. Her name's Anne and Claire, she has two names. But they went across the road from the studio, there's a Chinese restaurant. There was a pub opposite, but there was a Chinese restaurant. I think it was beside the studio or the opposite side, and they used to go for lunch, and Stanley used to go there on his own and eat Chinese food, and one day he asked Kathy and her sister to join him, and I'm just thinking, did he have the idea of getting twins, because they were twins? So I'm just wondering if he had the sudden idea to get two girls. Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, it was maybe coincidence. Yeah, and he chatted.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he chatted with them, and he was very nice to them. Anyway, getting back to my bit. Yeah, Stanley, most of the takes, there's one scene where I'm walking through, we don't really see it because it's cut. I'm walking through the Overlook Hotel, going towards where I was at the bit where Jack walks into the office, because it was everything, the office and everything was built on that set. So you can walk around and you can walk straight into the office where, you know, where Barry Nelson was and Barry Denham were interviewing Jack. It's massive studio.
I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, because you are in at least 4 different scenes in The Shining, but the first time we see you is inside the Overlook. You're dressed as the bellboy, and you're holding 2 really large suitcases. It seems like you're waiting with 2 hotel guests for the elevator or the lift, as you guys say, and Nicholson walks right past you. Like, what are your memories of shooting that scene? Did Stanley actually coordinate the supporting artists in that scene?
Obviously, he was very vocal director, and he would just say, I want it that way, that way. He was always very vocal, because obviously the first assistant is the person who usually takes the background artists, you know, supporting artists, how they operate and what scene. But Kubrick had everything planned. He knew exactly what he wanted. I mean, most of the takes we did would be at least 50 takes, at least 50.
Wow.
If not more. And
I mean,
you know, anything
not news, but it's always fascinating to hear it from the source.
I had to walk through with this woman, and I had to kind of walk through. This is not. I forget which scene. It's part of that same scene, but it's been cut. I walked through, and it's because I think Jack may have just been there at that point. You know, Jack Nicholson, and I had to kiss the girl on the cheek and walk down the hot corridor, because I don't know if I was meant to be a hotel guest at that point. We only see the back of my head, but I don't seem to have seen. I don't remember seeing that bit. And well, you know, let's say Stanley was. I would say that if he could have not only directed but been the actors, done every single thing on that film without anyone else there, he would have done that if he had the ability, because he was perfectionist, you know, and he was quite a nice person. He wasn't aggressive. He never shouted at anyone. And I remember seeing his daughter, because she was filming.
Vivian, his youngest.
Yeah, I don't know which one it was, but she was filming.
Vivian shot the documentary.
It must be Vivian. Yeah, she was quite nice. I spoke to her a few times, but I can't remember what I was talking about. But she was quite
really cool.
I was kind of shy. I was kind of very shy in those days, to be honest with you. But because Jack Nicholson was on it, I was a massive fan. I watched all the early films. You know, 5 Easy Pieces, the Carving Gardens, which Scatman Crothers appears in as well, and the early ones, the Easy Rider, obviously, being the first Jack Nicholson film I ever saw. So when I saw him, I couldn't believe it, because he's one of my heroes. So, so I actually went up to him and I said, "Hi, Jack. I'm Derek." He may have said, "What's your name?" I said, "Derek." And I would go up to him from time to time. There was one bit where he was sitting in one of the chairs near I think it's near the left-hand side of the set, in one of the armchairs, and he was eating these sandwiches. So I said to him, I said, Jack, I said, what are you eating there? He says, well, Derek, I'm eating some cheese sandwiches. Just fucking hammer them, you know.
Just cheese? That's all. He was eating cheese on bread.
Yeah. He wanted the ham in it. And there's another bit where we were doing this scene and Shaggy the Bow was on the set, and Jack was always playing, you know, and I think Jack was maybe smoking quite a bit of weed on the film, and
sure,
cocaine as well, possibly. And anyway, I was used to that because my father used to smoke marijuana. So, so
you saw the signs.
Yeah, you could see, and he went.
Well, wait, I hate to veer off, but how did he manage to get so intense? I mean, I was under the impression that people, you know, like when they're in that state, they kind of mellow out. He's like operating on two different spectrums there.
I think he's a kind of method, actually. Just like, I think you may have seen that shot where he smashes down the famous "Here's Johnny," you know, "Here's Johnny," you know, where he runs on the spot and gets himself worked up into it. And, you know, thing, you know, because when I was talking to Jack, because I can't remember in what sequence the dialogue was between me and him. I remember certain bits quite vividly. I remember asking him, it was actually outside the set. I was walking along with him, and I said, Jack, so how do you start the business? And he actually told me he worked at MGM in the cartoon department or something like that, I think he said. He worked at MGM in something to do with the cartoon department, and maybe I may be wrong. But something like that. I remember him saying something like that. I said, really? I said, yeah, so I started. He worked his, yeah, so I've read quite a bit on him. I can't remember me reading that. But he worked at MGM in some department. I remember him saying cartoons. But
it sounds like he was, more than just, polite or cordial to you. That he asked your name and stuff. Did you guys have any rapport during the shoot?
Well, the thing is, it goes on and on because every time I saw him, it was like in the scene where he's shown around the maze, because the maze itself,
the grounds, yeah.
In front of the overlook cell, they built the maze, but really the maze, it was only certain parts they built. They didn't build a complete whole maze, obviously, because it's been taking ages, and they didn't have the space, I suppose. But they did the outside of it, and so there's one scene where I know there's one when I'm walking in. You see the back of me. I'm wearing this. I've got some other photos. I have to dig out of me wearing the Adidas. It was the kind of very thin Adidas kind of sports top, which was popular in the 70s. And I wear that to walk in. But then there's another scene where I'm walking down towards where, you remember that tractor thing, that thing which is used in the film?
The snowcat, yeah.
Yeah, that was on the left-hand side. There was a little kind of garage for it. And I used to walk up that. There's another scene where I'm walking that way. And I say, hi, Jack. He goes, hi, Derek. How are you today? I promise you, he would do that. And that would kind of make me feel, God, I feel so good. And funny enough, actually, I actually bought and I read during that 2 weeks of being in that movie, I read The Shining by Stephen. And because I thought I'd get myself read it, as I read it most mornings, most nights when I went home, and I read the whole book. I still have it here during the time, so I got the feel of the film, and of which it was quite different to what eventually came out.
Yes, indeed. But go on.
Yeah. So Jack, he was good. One time he was this girl on the set. He always loved the girls. He would go up to the girls. And what we're talking about 70s. There's one particular girl called Julie Brown, and Julie Brown, I think she's now a continuity lady in films. I haven't spoke to her for years. And funny enough, she's the brother of a guy called Paul Brown, who's the guy who took my girlfriend away, who has my shirt.
Oh snap!
It's all connected, yeah.
Oh my gosh!
She's the girl in Indiana Jones. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Harrison Ford is the teacher, and the girl closes her eyes and says,
"Get out of here."
Julie Brown, yeah.
Neo, meaning new and lithic, I-T-H-I-C, meaning stone. All right, let's get back to this site. Turkneen Barrow near Hazleton. Contains a central passage and 3 chambers, or cysts. However, chamber 3 was undisturbed, and the undisturbed chamber and the grave goods that were found in another, in the area, give us a reason to date this find as we have. Any questions?
And she was on the
Wait,
film.
that's the girl who has your shirt?
Yeah, her brother.
Her brother? Oh, my... What?
Who had
Mind blown.
My back, yeah, absolutely. But we were friends after. It was not a problem, that's the way it goes. But I'd like to get the shirt back if I ever see him. But anyway, I remember one day Jack went up to the girls. He went up to the girls in the reception area, and I think Judy was only there for a couple of days. And she had these very tight trousers on, which I can't go into too much detail. And Jack went up to her one day and says, "Hey, what's your name?" She goes, "Julie. Julie, those jeans really fit you quite nicely, And he would, and he'd just go up and start flirting with the women and everything else, It's great.
Oh my gosh.
But say most days I would chat with him about different things, and I'm going to have to go on to talk about Scatman, because Scatman and I got him very close. Scatman.
Well, I want to ask you about that, but since you brought up reading King's novel while you were there for the 2 weeks, did you and Jack discuss the book at all? Did he take notice that you were reading it, or have any thoughts?
Well, I can tell you this because I'll save this for later. But I can tell you now. I said to Jack one day, "Look, I've got a copy of The Shining and Ken Casey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest." I said, if I bring it in, because I knew in a few days I'm going to be finished. Bring it in towards the end of the week. Would you mind signing it? He said, "Yeah, well, sure, Derek, no problem."
Oh man, that's so cool.
This is what happened, right? And this is a room which went around. The last day of shoot, I got the books in a plastic bag with me on set. I think I'm maybe in civilian clothes by this, because we, kept changing scenes, and one day you didn't know if you were in your own clothes. Apart from that's when I'm bringing the actual chairs in with Catherine Monroe doing that dialogue to Barry Nilsson.
Goodbye, girls.
Yeah, that's it.
The 70s. There they are for you in a nutshell.
Yeah, I'm wearing my own clothes, in a few scenes. But no,
cool.
At the end of the shoot, I was getting a bit kind of, oh God, is this going to happen or not? Okay, it's a wrap, and finish, Jack turns, it's absolutely true, Jack turns around, looks straight at me, walks straight towards me, he puts his arm around me, he said, "Come with me, Derek." And he took me up it's absolutely true, he put his arm around me, walked up the stairs, up the stairs, one flight of stairs, straight into his dressing room. There's me and Jack Nicholson in his dressing room. We walked in the dressing room, closed the door, and he's wearing that kind of that brown coat he wore, the kind of tweedy top coat. And on the left-hand side, I remember there was this cassette player. Remember the cassette players? We used to press the button.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, not the 8-track, just normal cassette.
Yeah, yep. I owned many. Go on.
And he pressed that, and I heard this music, and I said, "Jack, what's that music?" He said, "Well, Derek, I'm doing post-production on a movie called Going South." And that's the music is Ray Kuda has done the music, and that's the soundtrack. So I heard it. So I was listening to the soundtrack while talking to him in his room for this film called Going South with John Belushi.
Yeah.
And so
Stephen and I are huge Belushi fans, by the way.
In fact, Nicholson directed that.
Yep.
That's correct, yeah. And so we're talking about that, and then I thought, God, because I heard, Jack obviously loves women, absolutely, but I know what people are really up to. So I was a bit worried that he mostly thought, maybe do you think thinks I'm gay, or do you think all that went through my mind? You know, when we go through my mind, because he started taking his clothes off, and obviously he's going to take his clothes off because he's taking his costume off, and he's
right, exactly,
clothes on, right. So he took his clothes. I saw there's me looking at Jack with his, he's not as big as he is now, poor guy, but I saw him in his underpants, you know, or I think he had boxer shorts on, I think, something like that. And then he got dressed and stuff, and we sat down. He was opposite me, and there's this coffee table, like I think it was a glass coffee table, and he's on the directly opposite. I could touch him on the head with my right arm, left arm, and we're sitting opposite him. I think he poured a drink, or maybe he had a drink there, and he had this little tin case thing with, and he said, Derek, do you fancy smoking a joint? And I said, no, I'll be all right, you know. He made a joint, and then he had all these like, he had little compartments in it. And he, like,
wait, I gotta ask, did he light up anyway? I mean, did he just like smoke a joint in your presence and was cool with the fact that you did not want to partake?
He lit up a joint. Maybe I did try a little bit, but not too much.
I mean, come on, it's you and Jack Nicholson chilling in his dressing room.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I did smoke a joint with him, but I've never told him on that before. But
nice.
Yeah.
We have a Kubrick's Universe exclusive, Derek. Thank you, you're the man. You're the best.
But in his tin, when I was I'm very observant, I could see these little tablets in there, you know. Mm-hmm. There must be speed in there. There must be, who knows, Quaaludes, who knows what's in there. But anyway, so we're chatting away, and I actually brought Jack a present, and he didn't know about this. Now, subsequently, I know that Jack collects art, and I know he collects, I think he's got this thing with this dollar bills and things in art, and he's got these, I remember seeing some documentary or something on TV a bit later. So anyway, when I was born, I was given a 5 shilling crown coin, and I took it with me to give to him because I thought, you know, I'm one of those people who give things away. Like the other day, I was in Lidl, and this guy came. I had a pair of his glasses on, and this guy said, "Oh, I love your glasses." I said, "I haven't. I just give it away." He said, "Why?" He said, "Have it. It's okay. I don't mind." So I'm like, it's a very Buddhist thing of me. I always give things away, right? So I gave anyway. Cool. Anyway, so I kept it for one. I said, Jack, and so Jack signed, because you see on my website, you see the signatures, Jack, to Derek, warmest regards, Jack Nicholson, and then he signed the Cuckoo's Nest book, which
awesome.
I mean, the Shining book's actually signed by Scatman, by Shelley Duvall, by Brian Denham,
wow,
and Barry Nilsson. I think I've got a separate signature. I didn't get Kubrick's, you know, I was a bit too nervous to ask him, but
yeah. Understandable. Yeah. That's understandable.
And I was actually talking with Jack about I can't remember I can't say all of it because it'd take too long. But we're talking about lots of things. This will be in my book a bit later. But we're half an hour talking about life and this and that and the other, and you know. And so he signed that for me, and I said, "Well, thank you so much." I said, "Could you sign one from my friend Lucas as well, because he's a good friend?" So he did another one. So he did 4 autographs for me, and then I said, "I've got a present for you, Jack." He said, "Really, Derek?" I said, "Yeah." I said to him, "I want you to have this." So I handed across this 5 shilling coin with Her Majesty the Queen on it.
Oh, wow.
Really beautiful. Silver. It was actually silver.
Right, of course.
He looked at it, and he goes to me, and I wish you could see this what happened. Yeah, I looked him right in the eyes. I said, "No, I'd like you to have this, Jack." And because he mostly saw something nice in me, he said, "You sure, Derek?" I said, "Yeah." "Are you sure about this?" I said, "Yeah, yeah."
Oh man!
He goes, looked at me and he said, "Derek," honestly, with a tear in his eye, he said to me, "Derek, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever given to me."
Jeez, wow, that. Oh.
And I'm getting tingling. Are you feeling it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I am.
So my head's standing up on end. But that's what he said, and I tell you, I could see him almost to tears. And then, well, you know, so they went on for about, and I wished him luck, and I said, hopefully see you in the future, etc., etc. And that was it. And the negative thing about it is, and I can tell you this.
He put it on eBay.
No.
I'm kidding.
I was talking to his driver, who's an English guy, who was a bit kind of hello mate type, you know,
Right.
you know. And I didn't like him that much, but he would tell me stories which he shouldn't have really done. But I can tell you this, you can edit out if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
But he's telling me stories about a week before. He says, "Oh yeah, I'm Jack Nicholson's driver," you know. He said, "Yeah, I'll take Jack to West End." He used to pick up a prostitute in what's it called, Mayfair.
Yeah.
To this area in Mayfair in Shepherd's Market where the prostitutes. I used to see them myself in the 70s. We used to go in like and say hello to them, you know, myself, my friend. And he would pick up a prostitute, and then he'd get her in the back of the car, and then he's and have sex with them, screw them in the back of the car, and he would look at the driver and say, "Go around Hyde Park one more time."
Oh my God! So the driver would just kind of volunteer this unsolicited.
Yeah, he told me that. Yeah, and the thing is,
that's kind of crass. I mean, one thing that's not different between American and British culture is like nobody likes a rat.
No, but he shouldn't have said that to me. But
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and anyway, the funny thing is, when I was walking out the door, he suddenly turned up, and he kind of like looked at me like really angry. He says, "What are you doing in here?" Like, because he didn't see Jack was in the background. I said, "Well, Jack," and then Jack looks at this guy, and I can't remember his name. He say his name was Simon. He said, "Listen, Simon, Derek's a friend of mine. You leave him alone, you know." Because I was very intimidated.
Right on.
Right? And the guy, "Oh, sorry, Jack. Oh, sorry, I didn't know." You know.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Good for him.
He looked really angry. I think he actually grabbed me. I think he possibly grabbed me, but you know, I was much slimmer and different than I would have hit him now. But you know, that's the way it is. But
yeah.
And so during the filming, it was great to work along with Jack. He was
That's
big.
So cool. What a cool story of him to do that, to like have your back when, you know, this jerk driver wanted to give you a hard time. Like he was being protective of Jack, and Jack's like, "You don't know anything about this guy. Back off." I love hearing stuff like that.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you this, because I was a very speedy person for many years. I still can be.
Mm-hmm.
What I used to do is, the way I calm myself down, I used to say to myself, "Think Jack." So, like, if I was speeding, I'll go, "Think Jack," and go,
right,
relax, and you know, and it would actually calm me down and center me by thinking about Jack, because I'm an impersonator anyway, and I can. I can do lots of voices and I study people subconsciously. I took on his persona sometimes as Jack Nicholson. I'd pick. It would be very helpful to my development actually as a human being. But he was one of my favourite actors I've ever worked with, apart from Robert Mitchum and Anthony Hopkins. He was one of the most favourite people. I love him dearly, and. That's
so cool.
I can tell you another story which connects with Jack again, but if you want to hear it.
Of course, yeah.
Well, years later, I'm in Soho in London, and I used to go to this coffee place called Patricia Valerie, of which my friend eventually owned. And they sold it now. It's a big franchise now. But used to get all, you know, everyone, you know, Tim Roth, Bob Geldof, everyone used to go in there. It was just a coffee bar. All the people in Soho, all the film people used to go in there. Very nice coffee, stuff and cake. And so I was walking down Old Contra Street one day, and I bumped into an old friend of mine called Dave. And Dave Whiting, his name is, he worked a lot with Adamant. And he was the one who created the Adamant image with the regalia, the pirates.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was his idea. It's in the V&A, his idea. Anyway, so Dave has got this kind of holding this costume, because he worked in costume. You know, he's like a daily costume person. Not a designer, but a guy who worked in many films. He worked on numerous films. He's still a friend of mine now. And he's in his 70s now. And he had this costume with him. I said, "What's that costume?" He said, "Oh, Derek, you know, I'm working on a new film about Batman." I said, "Really?" I said, "This is Jack Nicholson's Joker's costume."
Oh my God!
And
wow!
There I am sitting in the coffee, and then there is the whole, you know, the purple, the hat,
the red, yes. Wow!
Everything was there. So I felt, you know, this is before even Jack wore it. it was obviously made to measure for him, but he just picked it up. So, and then Dave said to me, he said, "Del, tell me a bit of Jack back. I heard stories about you and Jack, because there was a rumor in the film business for years. Just after that, and I was asked numerous times on other films. I heard you went up to Jack's dressing room." I said, "Yeah." And there was this room. He said, "Was there any funny stuff?" I said, "No, I was just talking. I didn't tell him the story as I told you."
All
but
right.
the room was about me having an affair with Jack Nicholson. This is what we're.
Dude, I mean, not for nothing, but I mean, wear it as a badge of honor.
Yeah, I mean, he's not that way inclined anyway. The thing is, what I've done in that position is a bit like the Harvey Weinstein thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Done, but
that, I suppose.
Ready to get out, but as being kind of a shy person, I wouldn't know what to do. But
just best to just let people talk.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. When you know the truth, what does it matter when you know the truth?
You know what? It didn't bother me to this day. If people think that way, let them think that way. I don't care. So Dave asked me all these questions. I told him these questions and stuff I told him about. So then Dave had a better picture of this guy. He was a bit nervous about working with him because he was going to be his assistant and for the costume assistant on the film. And I said, "Well, when you see Jack, would you give my regards and explain this, explain that?" He said, "Oh, yeah, I do that." Anyway. About a couple of years go by, and I bumped into Dave very much where my apartment used to be, quite near where I live now, and in Kent. And I said, "Dave, how'd it go?" He says, "Yeah. Do you know what, Derek? I ended up going to LA and staying at Jack's house, and you wouldn't believe it. Oh,
nice.
The drugs, the women.
And
One day I was sitting there, and there was me and Mick Jagger and Danny DeVito and Joe Pesci, etc. But I, as you know, Derek, I don't like the sun that much. And he stayed there. He stayed there for I think it was about 4 months. And Jack paid for his flight, everything.
Wow.
And wanted Dave to be there because Jack likes normal people. Mm-hmm. And but then Dave decided to go back, and then Jack offered him a part in The Two Jakes, and he did.
Oh wow!
But he turned it down.
What?
Because he wanted to work on Memphis Belle because he liked that period. Because Dave.
Oh, okay, yeah. I can't argue that.
Harry Connick. He likes those costumes, and he really wanted to work, and he must would have earned more money on that anyway. But Jack really looked after him well. I mean, he's a silly boy, a silly man, really, but. I don't think he sees Jack anymore, speaks to Jack anymore, but that's that story. But I'm a bit annoyed that he never passed my regards on to Jack. He forgot, which I've got to forgive him for that, but that's the way it is. So people tend to use stuff for their own promotion. That's the trouble,
Yeah, I mean, I hate to slip this in, but I almost feel like saying, uh-oh, he don't look happy. He's been using brand X. And not for nothing, but since you brought up Memphis Belle, a while back, Stephen and I interviewed Adam Rakoff, who was just a great guy. He helped Matthew Modine develop the Full Metal Jacket Diary app for iPad, and since we were on the topic of costumes, apparently Matthew wore his own grandfather's bomber jacket during the shooting of Memphis Belle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just thought that was a lovely touch. I mean, that's one of the things I love about actors, and just that dedication, and also finding a personal connection to the character.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's very much like Chekhov, Anton Chekhov with the actual Michael Chekhov. She was saying Michael Chekhov. It's that kind of. I studied Chekhov for a while, and my friend, the teacher Graham Dixon, yeah, so I understand that, and putting the hat on and pretending you got get into the character by, but I can do it anyway. I do it by being a mimic and get into my characters that way. But
sure.
Props really help. When I wear a prop, I can become that person, But no, but I can tell you about Scatman if you want.
I was about to get to that, yeah, because it sounds like you guys developed a lovely little friendship. And
Scatman was such a nice person. At lunchtime. I said, because I didn't realise at the time that I'd seen him on TV as Hong Kong Phooey, because he did the voice.
Of course, yes.
#1 super guy. Hong Kong Phooey, quicker than the human eye. Tick-a-chong, tick-a-chong, tick-a-chaka, tick-a-chong, tick-a-bop-chop-chop in the bow-wow-wow. Hong Kong Phooey, fanrific!
As I say, I would go to the canteen, which is near there was a bar in the canteen. I would go in there and I'll be queuing up with Scatman. And he goes, hello, hey, how are you? I can't do his voice. He goes, what's your name? And I would start chatting. And I've got my food and he's in front of me. And I'm, going to pay. He goes, no, I'm paying. Almost every day, and I didn't expect it, almost every day we had lunch together. And he paid. He would never let me pay.
Yeah, that's pure class. That's pure class.
He told me that he was a godfather to Sammy Davis Jr., who, in fact, who I did see in concert in the early 80s, I think, at the London Palladium.
Nice.
But he was his godfather, and he was telling me all this. I can't remember all the stories, but I remember talking about Sammy, and we're just talking about. He was telling me about his dancing and his singing and what he did, and he was such a nice person, and he was always very nice to me during the film, and
he seems like such a gem of a person. Yeah.
I mean, I spoke. I mean, Shelley Duvall, she was a bit crazy. I found her to be a little bit. It's very highly strung.
Mm-hmm. Well, she had to be in character, and in Vivian's documentary, you do see that. Stanley had every justification for needing her to be in a constantly manic state.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one scene where Jack is behind. We were rehearsing because we did about 50 takes for certain one, almost maybe more sometimes, even 100 possibly. And but it's okay. We've been paid. I think I may have worked on it for over 2 weeks actually, maybe 2.5. But I remember Jack going behind the desk at the Overlook, and then Shelley's standing beside him, just resting, and Kubrick is setting up and doing the line-up of what's going to be happening next and telling the assistant director what's going to happen. And Jack then suddenly he puts his hand on the desk thing, and he starts knocking. Hey Kubrick, I'm getting pretty horny over here. I'm going to fuck you in a minute.
Wow.
He kept really pushing Kubrick all the time. Kubrick, it's taking too long, and he would out and he would.
That's brilliant. That's so funny.
A bit like that, thing.
Yep.
He did all that kind of stuff. He was playing around quite a bit, but he did say that he shouted. He was doing this thing, knocking almost like masturbation kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, Kubrick, get your shoulder on. I'm gonna fuck Shelley in a minute, like that.
Oh God. Oh my God. These stories are just you can't make this stuff up.
I mean, I remember him doing that, and not many people remember that. I've got a good memory because I was so absorbed with Jack, watching him all the time. And even when there was a lunch break, Kubrick would still be setting up and planning the next scene and doing, just getting everything sorted in his vision. I would sometimes wait, and watch Stanley Kubrick work, and I was fascinated by just watching him. I may have absorbed something by watching him, as with working with, for example, Peter Hunt, who directed On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and Jack Cardiff, who did the lighting camera of Black Narcissus and Girl.
Great movie.
And he directed Girl on the Motorcycle and The African Queen. I mean, Jack Cardiff won the Oscar several years ago. He's sadly died dead now. He was the best lighting cameraman in the business, and I was very close to him. We used to picture Joe quite a lot on the phone. But being around those kind of people, and John Coquilliam, who was a Canadian who worked with Stan Peckinpah. He was a friend of mine as well. And
wow!
I watch him work. We worked on Last Place on Earth and a couple of other movies. And he worked at Straw Dogs as well with Suzanne George, and that. So I always liked, even though I did the supporting artist work, I always was fascinated by just the direction, how everything worked, costume. I watched as much as possible, absorb. And people say, you know, the assistants would come up to you and go, Derek, you could be at lunch. I said, I'd like to watch. And some of the assistant directors were really okay about it, but others, you know, didn't want you to be around. You know, you've got, you know, just go, you know. But see, because I actually, Michael Stevenson, who's also worked in The Shining, is one of the, I think he was the second AD on it. I'm still kind of friends with him. He's on Facebook, I think, still, but his daughter runs it. And Michael Stevens is regarded as the best second assistant in the world. He won an Oscar as well, honorary Oscar, several years ago. And he worked also on Flash Gordon as well. He was assistant director on that.
Oh, okay.
So, Derek, don't worry about it. Yes, okay, yeah, just stay. It's all right. You know, he was really cool with me, you know, and because he started himself in the post room at Pinewood and worked his way up to assistant director, and wonderful man.
Who is Stanley Kubrick?
He's one of the premier, or I should say was one of the premier film directors of our time. He was an icon. Stanley Kubrick always paid extreme attention to detail to the point where he did not only 1,000 takes, but he would actually have the actors and actresses actually come back, even if they're overseas, to come back to do and refilm the movies, no matter where they were. He was such a perfectionist. Every single detail, to how you're holding your pen, to where your hands were, to your smile expression, he just didn't settle for okay. It had to be perfect every single time.
I got on very well with Brian Denham. I didn't realise he was very close friends, I think, with Barbra Streisand. But I thought Barry was. I actually thought he was gay. I mean, I wasn't sure because he looked. And he was very nice, though. You know, but Barry Nelson was great. I mean, he was a star. You know, Barry Nelson. You know, he played Jimmy Bond. He was the original James Bond. No, but Stanley, I was a big fan of Stanley ever since in '69 when I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey. I wasn't even aware that my Uncle Terry, who actually worked on it.
I want to ask you about that. Your Uncle Terry Duggan.
Yeah.
Was also one of the man-apes, along with Dan Richter, who we got to interview. Tell us about your uncles. Like, do you have any recollections of him telling you?
Terry was my godfather and uncle, and he married my father's sister, and he, you know, he saved my life once. I almost fell off a cliff. I think it was in Brighton.
What?
Yeah, I was always like a kind of. Most people should have been a stuntman because I used to jump and fall and do lots of things and
sure
stars on my face and I mean, you know, jumping around. I had no fear, and I went to run. I think it was about 2 and a bit years old. I went to run off the edge of a cliff.
How old were you?
About 2.5, possibly.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay.
During that time, it was actually. I also took my father's heart tablet. So in the same year, I almost died twice. You know.
Oh my gosh!
No, 3 times because I just remembered because when I was 2.5, between 2 and 3, I almost ran off the cliff where Terry saved me. I took the heart tablets at my mum's and my grandfather's house, and then I rushed to hospital and had a stomach pump. And the third thing is at the Lido up in Finchley, I fell in the 10 foot, which is about 3 meters, about 10 foot. And I couldn't swim then, and I went under, and I was under. Yeah, I was pulled out, and the guy who pulled me out and saved my life, who's a friend of my dad's, who's also a stuntman, was a guy called Roy Scammell, and Roy Scammell, he worked. I mean, I think he works on Flash Gordon. He was a Hawkman and other things. So it's all this connection. I think he must have worked with Kubrick because everyone worked with Kubrick. But,
yeah. So, but your Uncle Terry, so he saved your life the first time.
Yeah, Terry, I didn't realise that till later because I researched a little few years ago before he died, and it said on IMDb he was a rouster, like so. I thought, like, you know, a Western cowboy, you know, a rouster gets the like cowboy who roused.
Yeah.
You know, but I thought I didn't remember any cowboys in that film. And then I heard through grapevine, Terry was one of the apes in it because of his ability. Because in fact, when he worked on as a supporting artist on You Only Live Twice at Pinewood Studios, they asked the supporting artists because they didn't have enough stuntmen, if they would like to, go to the top of this this kind of mountain where they have this big rocket and abseil down, And he said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then from that he got his stunt card, and he did a bit of stuff. And then he obviously, because he could tumble and stuff, he was in that movie in 2001. In fact, my grandparents on my mother's side took me to see it, and because my grandfather, not my grandmother so much, my grandmother was a Jehovah's Witness, who was a Catholic before I became a Jehovah's Witness in the 30s. And so I was around that environment as a child, and I don't have that belief myself. And I remember when we came out in 2001, my grandmother loved it. But my grandfather, because of his belief system, he hated it. What's that? What is that bloody monolith thing? What the hell is that? What the hell?
Man.
But my just before I go back to Uncle Terry, my other claim to fame is my grandfather. My father's side, his name was Arthur Ernest Lyons. He was the person who made the suits for Edward, King Edward, who abdicated, and also Cary Grant, and made the suit for North by Northwest.
No kidding! Wow,
he made that grey suit. Yeah, he was actually Cary Grant's tailor, and he also did Robert Mitchum and Fred Astaire and Rex Harrison.
That is incredible.
Yeah, it was a place. He worked at a place called French's. It's called Kilgar's now, but it was called Kilgar French and Stanbury from the 1930s right away through to the 60s. And then he retired through ill health, and he died a year later. But so getting back to Terry Duncan, Terry, I used to see him over the years, but he never ever helped me out. He never kind of gave me. He gave me some advice, go to drama school, which I did. I went to Anna Scher's for a while, and then later on I studied other at the Actors Centre, and I did the courses, acting courses, and this and that and the other, just to get it together. And I mean, not to be blasé about it, but a lot of stuff I did acting wise and training as an actor, I kind of knew it anyway. It's like things which I felt I'm relearning, and I was able to do it. I mean, the last part I did in 2014. I was working with this girl called Jill Greenacre. She's quite an established actress here and teacher. And I learnt my dialogue, and I was BBC executive, Peter, I think it was Z-listers. And at the end, we did this, the whole scene, like quite a bit of dialogue. She said to me, "Do you know what, Derek? You're a bloody good actor." I said, "Well, thank you." I never thought that, But yeah. But anyway, Terry never helped me. I did everything myself. I never wanted to do this. I just wanted to be working, and I worked with numerous people.
You certainly did, my man. I mean, no question about it. Like, I was saying at the top of the show that, like, the films you were in from the 80s through the 90s, in the 70s through the 90s, it's like, I mean, it's just it's like a best of British films. From that entire span, and there's people. Some of my dear friends and I, we talk about the span of films, both British and American, really, that came out between the mid to late 70s, really up until only about the early 90s, as just being like, I mean, maybe it's because of our ages and when we grew up, during the home video revolution, and remember when you had to go to a movie theater to see a film more than once, and then having the advantage of watching it at home and again. Maybe it's more biased, but it does feel like, we had this golden era of films that and you were in so many of them. It's mind blowing, dude.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, for example, one of my favourite movies I worked on, apart from Flash Gordon, I played 3 characters in Flash. So I worked on it for about 8 weeks. I got on very well with Ornella Muti, and that's another story. But I ended up in a dressing room a few times. Anyway, but she was very nice, and I was in contact with her a few years ago. She wants me to, if I go to Rome, she wants to meet up. So when I eventually get there, I have to contact her through her.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
At some point. Yeah, I'd like to do it. I would like to do more than that. But anyway, we'll stick but no.
Some flames never die; they just flicker.
Well, I worked on a thing called Kroll.
On a distant planet, a great kingdom was ravaged by beings who came from the future to conquer the universe. Now, the only survivors follow a doubtful seer and a throneless king.
They will hold her in the Black Fortress. You must have help.
Thieves, bandits, fighters and brawlers.
Desperate men. Those are the kind of men I need.
Well, you heard him. We are now an army.
At the end of an impossible journey, they must fight an invincible enemy.
Here's the knowledge you seek.
I shall be your king.
In the fortress, you will face more than the slayers.
What is about to happen to them could never have happened on Earth. Columbia Pictures presents a world apart from anything you have seen before. Kroll.
And I'm actually the main White Slayer in the movie.
Are you really? Dude, okay, I was going to ask about Kroll, even though it's not Kubrick related, I know, but I saw that movie in the theater, and I love it. I have it on Blu-ray. Tell us, you were the main White Slayer?
I'm the Slayer with the tiger. You know that scene with the tiger? And,
of course.
Yeah, well, that's me, and that was actually sit on a kind of rostrum. We're built high, and the guy behind me is a guy called Dominic Weinmark. Now, Dominic Weinmark, I think he works in the States now on set designing on movies and stuff, in horror films, but he was a son of Patrick Weinmark, who was in Where Eagles Dare.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, yeah, Patrick Weinmark. And Dominic Weinmark, as I said, he was a lovely guy, and we got these costumes on, and they chose us to be these White Slayers. They had stuntmen as well doing it in the swamp scenes and things like that. Mm-hmm. Which I think it was actually Nosher or Dinny Powell, who I knew, still know their son Gary, who's a stunt coordinator for the Bond films. I think almost drowned because they're in a swamp thing. It was actually 007 stage where they were coming through the swamps. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of them was past that. But no, getting back to the White Slayer, yeah, I'm the guy who they put us in this kind of round. They got this tiger, real tiger, and they didn't feed him for 3 or 4 days. And what they did, they got a life-size Slayer, you know, just a costume, and they put some steak in the top part of it, because what they want to do is get the tiger in there, and then the tiger has to jump and knock the Slayer's head off, you know.
Right.
Or go for it. Anyway, they put us on the front. And these costumes were made as foam, and they must have weighed about 200 pounds plus.
Wow.
Heavy, and you could only walk from side to side, and I'm carrying this kind of laser kind of gun thing, and they put us behind this perspex.
Okay.
Anyway, no one told the tiger who to go for. So what the tiger did, he went in, circled, and went straight for us.
Oh, my God.
No way out. There's no way out. Now, I don't know if it was plastic or glass. I'm not sure. And the tiger went and hit the perspex and almost got his claws around the side of it.
Oh, wow.
Wrapping but I had to react to it. So there's that scene where the boy says Slayer, and I shoot the boy, and he goes down. And then the next scene, the tiger jumps and gets. Well, they eventually did the very bad special effects, if you see, knocking the Slayer down. But so we did that take about 10 times, and I remember at the end, I said to the assistant director, because I spoke to the stuntman, I said, "Look, that's a bloody stunt." And they said, "Yeah." And I had to eventually go to the producer. I said, "Look, you've got to pay us this. You get money for wearing the costume plus this plus." But overtime, etc. And I said, "You've got to pay me like almost a stunt."
10 times, yeah. With a tiger? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, I eventually did get we did get paid very well, but not. It wasn't. It was almost a stunt rate, but it wasn't exactly. But we still did pretty well out of it. But yet again, I think they did us out of that $40. But I think I got about $600 for that, but it was quite a lot of money in those days.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, wow. All right, so I just have to ask about. I mean, I'm showing my bias because I loved Greystoke. My dad. I have. Thankfully, he's still with us. Such a great dad. Very cool. Always took us to any movie he wanted to see, and he never. He always allowed me to, kind of feel it out myself. He didn't insult my young intelligence, I guess. And so he would take me. I mean, I saw Blade Runner in 1982, and I was 11, and I asked him to take me back to see it again. I saw Greystoke. Loved that. I mean, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? We saw all the Indiana Jones, the Bond films that you were in. And one of them, which stuck with me, which is just the strangest movie, and it, of course, has a cult following of its own. And I have it on Blu-ray. I love to watch it as a comfort movie sometimes late at night, is Life Force.
From the director of Poltergeist and the writer of Alien comes a terrifying new film.
I'm getting a very small radar cross-section. 150 miles long.
EGR's confirmed.
Tell them we have an artificial object out here.
In the tail of Halley's Comet, there's something wrong. Something ancient. Something evil.
Jesus.
Houston, we have a problem. Something's happening to me.
Something hungry. That's brought to Earth.
She's destroyed worlds.
That girl was no girl. She was totally alien to this planet in our life form. And totally dangerous.
I just found a body in Hyde Park. Visited you how? In my mind. Let it go! It's already spreading. You didn't stop it. It's too late.
Life Force. The terror has just begun.
And so we had to rehearse in the night. We did 2 weeks of night shoots. In fact, at the same time, my friend, this is get back to Kubrick again, my friend at the time, what's his name? Grant Hall was working nights on Life Force, but in the days he was working at on Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket, wow.
He was actually putting in the because they had to make it the East End. They filmed it someplace in near the East End on this kind of
the Becton Gas Works, I believe.
That's right, and they had to they were helping put the palm trees in. But back after we had to kind of rehearse and do this kind of zombie kind of walk that they do now, and I'd do my bit. And I remember Derek Cracknell was the first assistant director. Now Derek actually worked. He actually worked on 2001 with Stanley Kubrick, and Derek's no longer with us. See, I quite liked him. He was very brash Englishman. He talked, you're right. He had a rough voice, And he said, I remember because I was like, I was pretty confident in when I was doing things. And he's talking about the scene, what we're doing, and the bus comes in, and the zombies come out, and it's all this kind of fire things, it's like the end of the world kind of scenario. And I said to Derek, because he called me Dale as well, I said, what is my motivation in this? He says, Derek, fuck the motivation, just do it. Fuck the motivation, just do it. So, so we did night shoots basically as a zombie, but I can't remember. I haven't seen the film for ages. And then we also were in the night shoots with Patrick Stewart and the actress who was naked in the beginning. She was naked, wasn't she? I think. What's her name?
Yes. Oh, her name. Gosh, I should know this. I had such a crush on her. Who didn't?
Yeah, pretty good. Listen, let's tell this right. We filmed that. In fact, it was called Space Vampires originally.
Yes, it was. Yeah. I mean, which would have been an apt title because, like I said, the movie is all over the place, almost doesn't know what it wants to be, which is one thing the critics kind of panned it for at the time. But, you know, us kids who were home with our VCRs watching the same movies again and again, that's one of the things that endeared it to us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you something. We did a night shoot in Barnet, in a place called Totteridge, at this council building, the 1970s council building, where Peter Firth is in it. He's a nice chap. I met him a few years ago. I think he plays a detective in it. He's a blonde guy, a curly-haired chap. And I think Patrick Stewart's there as well, because I didn't know who Patrick was then, in those days, until he became Luke Picard. But I remember, I couldn't believe it. It's a freezing night shoot, about 2 o'clock in the morning, and suddenly there's this woman walking naked in front of me.
Yeah, you know what? I just remember her name is Matilda May.
Yeah, she's beautiful. I mean, she had a beautiful body. I've got to say, she really.
Oh, and her face is timeless. I mean, I Googled her a couple of years ago when I got the Life Force Blu-ray, and she's still a gorgeous, gorgeous woman.
I have to look her up. But no, she was walking naked. We couldn't believe it. I mean, you just can't believe it. It's great. You know, I love this. But we did night shoot up there. I don't know what I can't remember what I did. Maybe they used me up there, but I remember seeing her naked anyway. But yeah.
Well, I just have to tie in also. I mean, that there's all these roads that lead back to Kubrick. Now here you are in Krull, and you get attacked by the tiger. And if I'm not mistaken, your Uncle Terry is the man-ape who is credited as being attacked by the leopard in the Dawn of Man sequence in 2001.
Yeah, that's it. Something like because he I didn't look up. But yeah, he's in that as a monkey. I never spoke to years later because he used to write pantomime. In England, we have a thing called pantomime, and he did quite a few. He wrote pantomimes, and he actually became he had this kind of variety act where he was a stage drunk, and it was like the old school variety.
Yeah.
20 years, he knew everyone. I mean, he was a water rat, and which is quite a big thing in this country to be part of. And he knew a lot of people in variety. But yeah, I never discussed that with him. And
I was just pointing out that it's an interesting little pseudo connection, for lack of a better word. That your uncle, you were attacked by the tiger in Krull, and your uncle was attacked by the leopard in 2001.
Funny, really. Actually, I think
isn't it? Yeah, I don't know.
It's connections. I know. Whenever I went on the film, it's like years later in about '94. It's actually true. Now, I had worked, and I had met, and had many dinners with a director called Nick Rogue. Now, Nick Rogue worked with many famous people. He's the one who directed Man Who Fell to Earth. Now,
yeah, of course.
His son, Waldo, was good friends of mine because we worked on many movies together when he was a runner, up to assistant director, etc. And Waldo eventually becomes a first assistant. He's now retired from it now, he does other stuff. And I end up turning on this big kind of crowd call. And because I left the business for a few years, I was doing other stuff. I was working at Planet Hollywood restaurant. I was doing all this other stuff. And it was kind of slight recession in the 90s anyway. I was doing a TV show called The Bill. I did that for 5 years. Stopped it in 91. Then I was out of work. And I became a lifeguard. And it went on and on. And eventually, it happens. So I turn up one day for this. I thought I might as well just go back to see what it's like again. So I turn up at County Hall, which is near where the big Millennium Wheel is now. And there's like hundreds of sporting artists there. And I'm talking to my dear late friend Michael Leader, who's sadly not with us anymore. He was very good friends with Stan Laurel's daughter, and he was part of Sons of the Desert, and he knew everyone in the film business. I mean, Bill Nighy, who I worked with many years and had drinks with, who's been in a lot of those films with Kate Beckinsale, the vampire films. Forget the clubs.
Oh, Underworld, yeah.
Well, yeah, he's in one of those. Lovely guy, Bill Nighy. But I remember I was talking to Michael, and his father was a big band leader in this country, and we were chatting away, and suddenly this assistant ran up to me. He said, "Are you Derek Lyons?" I said, "Yeah." And then Michael looks at everyone and says, "I can't believe it." He's a very Jewish boy. He goes, "I can't believe it. Derek's been out of the business for all these years. He turns up on a crowd call, and he's got picked for something, obviously. So I go into this hall, and then there's Waldo, who's the first assistant. And he said, "Oh, I've got a little part for you, Derek." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, you're going to be doing stuff with the Ted Danson, you know." I said, "Right." So I end up having a little feature in a thing called Loch Ness.
Wow.
I'm actually the guy who delivers the package, and you hear me say, "Oh, here's your package," or something like, to Ted Danson, and then he shows the slides, and it's not really, no spoilers, but it's not what everyone thinks it is, because he has proof about Loch Ness. So that's what happened to me. That's my life story. Whenever I turned up on a film, I always got called back. Same with Victoria. They called for me to be
another great film.
With Julie Andrews. I was in the gay club patron scene. Scene. But I was always asked for, and I didn't really need. It's even like, all due respect, much better actor than whatever I would ever be is Cary Grant. Cary Grant never had an agent, really. He did everything himself. And so I was literally, everything I did word of mouth, and people called me up, and then eventually I was going to become an assistant director, and I worked on a couple of things as third, and Michael Stevenson and the guy called Andy Armstrong, which is a great guy, he's now based in America, in Hollywood, who's actually Vic Armstrong's brother, who I know as well. Vic Armstrong, Indiana Jones, the guy who doubled Harrison Ford, and
right.
Yeah, and did all that. He did the scene with the big tank, and the horse riding, and they're renowned for that. But yeah, so you kind of, all these things get interconnected. It's amazing, really. People, I know that some there's always an arse out there who, when I did this film, Elm Street 1976, which I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I always take the mickey or the piss out of myself. I'm not really. I'm self-deprecating, a bit like Roger Moore used to be, and
it's a good way to be. If you can make fun of yourself, you can take the slings and arrows from others.
Well, Robert Mitchum, and I quote, said to me one day, we were talking. I was very in awe of him, and he came up to me quite a few times, started telling me jokes, and two other colleagues, and he says, "Derek, Hollywood is all smoke and mirrors and full of horse shit." and he was so dry about it. So
it's brilliant.
And I remember someone had written a review about the Elm Street film. I don't always read reviews, but I just read this one. And this guy is obviously jealous. He says, "Oh, this guy's done so many films. He's been in so many films. He was just a fucking extra. That's what he was, just a fucking extra."
Oh, boy.
And I said, well, let him think that way. Because, look, uncredited. For example, Alan Ladd, the great Alan Ladd.
Of course.
Shane. He did about 30 to 40 films uncredited. And so uncredited doesn't mean you weren't in the movie. It just means you were uncredited. It doesn't mean you speak. It doesn't mean you weren't in the film, because they can't. There's only so many credits. Look, for example, Apocalypse Now. When I saw that film, I saw it back. Good point. Huh? I
was just saying, good point. Go on. Yeah, when you saw Apocalypse Now, go ahead.
Yeah, when I went to see Apocalypse Now, it was a long film. At the ABC in Shaftesbury Avenue, I saw it 10 times. The guys I knew let me in free. You would get a booklet with all the credits in it, because too much to put on the screen. It's so much, so people don't understand. They see people out there are very getting right wise, and it's like me. It's not that I'm famous; it's that I have the connection with. I'm connected to Star Wars. I'm connected to Indiana Jones. I'm connected to James Bond.
Amen, brother.
Connected to Flash Gordon. It's connection with. It's not because, like Mark Hamill, and due respect to Mark and that, Lucky Boy, and the late Carrie Fisher, she's a wonderful woman, I miss her dearly. These people have the connection with. It's because that film becomes very famous or cult-like that you're connected with it. Now, a story which was told to me many years ago, there was a John Wayne movie, and I do like John Wayne. And
of course,
there was this guy who was at the bar in a scene. I can't remember which movie it was. I'm sure it was John Wayne film. And he goes up the bar, and he just the guy pours him a beer, and he looks at John, and that's it. And that's all he did. Now, everyone, they showed that film, I think, at the BFI, which was the National Film Theatre a few years ago. I may have been there. I may be mistaken. And he was the last guy standing, basically. So they invited him on. When he walked on that stage, people went mad. They went fucking crazy.
Of course. Yeah.
Because he was a connection with. And that's what you've got to get. It's the connection with. It doesn't mean that you're the star or not the star. If you're connected with something like that, that's the most important thing. Now, people will say to me, oh, yeah, you did this, you didn't speak, then you didn't that. Oh, okay, I'm the modern day Charlie Chaplin, so what? The point is, the point is that I worked on those movies. You didn't.
Amen.
I've worked.
Yes.
I've sat next to Betty Davis. I spoke to Elizabeth Taylor, Kim Novak, Jack Nicholson, Robert Mitchum. The list goes on and on. And even Annie Hopkins gave me a lift once from National Theatre after King Lear, and gave me a lift almost home. And told me his life story. These things happen to me. I don't know how.
Listen, I mean, preach, because. Yeah. None of that is lost on us. None of our listeners, certainly not me or Steven, anybody who can appreciate everything you just said. Again, just amen to all of that, because you are connected. And listen, I am not a particularly starstruck person. Steven knows this. And at the same time, I just got to add that, like, if you told me when I was a little kid, let's say it's by 1981, my life had already been changed by Star Wars, The Shining, and Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah. If you told me that I was going to get a chance to chat with you someday down the line, like, I wouldn't have believed it, And it's just, I think it's so cool of you to have the perspective that you do, because you clearly have just a reverence and appreciation for the connection that you have to all of these, and the connections that you've brought about through all of these different, universes, to your own life experience. How many people get to say that, Derek? I mean, that's awesome.
I agree. But see, also, other people think that because you've worked in the film industry, I did earn a lot of money during the times I worked in the film industry. I could most people bought 3 or 4 houses at the time. Now I think it's gone mad with the inflation and everything else. And the same when I worked in the bill, I was on $750, like, say, $1,000 plus dollars, $1,500 a week in the 90s. And I don't know where the money went. But, since that time, because of the connection with, I've had, this film, Elm Street 1976, directed by John Spiro, produced by Hank Stars, and very grateful for that. I've had this Life After Flash. And in fact, they filmed quite a lot of me for this Life After Flash film. And there's even a scene where I'm arm wrestling Sam Jones. You can watch it on YouTube, which we did.
Oh, I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah. And
writing that down.
Sam was he's such a nice guy. He used to play cards with everyone. Flash, such a nice person. And then so I've done 3 documentaries. That's the one, the Elm Street one, which took about 4 years to film here and there. And then we did. Then I've done this Life After Flash, and I've done another film called A Bond for Life, which is like a fan-made film by a guy called Benjamin Lind, who's a big James Bond fan. And I'm in that film as well, which is yet to be on DVD. But so I've done all this, and also that book, which is called Stanley Kubrick's The Shining: Studies in the Horror Film.
I own it. I've read it cover to cover.
Well, they kept something. In fact, they wanted me to do an essay as well, but I didn't want to do the essay because I wanted to save it for my book, because I could have gone on like I did today with you. But they wrote that bit, but they took this bit where I did tell them about the bit with me and Jack, and about him like crying, but they took that out for some reason. But that's okay. But,
this time a year and a half ago, I was in fact reading your interview with Justin Bozung, I believe it was.
Yeah, he's the one who contacted me initially. I am so happy, and so my father got me in the business, absolutely, but I made it myself. What I did. Who knows? I maybe do something. I may end up like. That actor, the Silver Fox, was his name, that stuntman who did stuff later in his life, who did that film, that David Lynch film,
Farnsworth, Richard Farnsworth.
Yeah, that's it, the Straight Story, remember that great film? No, and he made it later in his life, and so I don't mind waiting for that time, it's okay, I left my mark then. And the thing is that I love, every time I went and worked on a movie, even though it was very early in the morning, I was always full of energy and life, and a lot of people were half asleep still. but I was always on the ball, and I made people laugh. I mean, even on Space Vampires and a few others, we'd be in the coach, and I'll be impersonating, Clint Eastwood and all this kind of stuff. And
Stephen. Stephen's the biggest Clinton Eastwood Jr. fan on the planet.
Yeah. And the other one I did, which was better, was my name is LP Dowd. Yes, James Stewart. I would do the.
I love it.
This is Harvey. Come over here, Harvey. Just sit there, Harvey. What you? Harvey.
Merry Christmas, you old savings and loan.
Yeah. I'll do that. I always entertain the rest of the crowd, the actors and stuff.
Great. That's great.
Derek, could you tell us about meeting Oliver Reed?
Yeah, Oliver Reed. Yeah, this is actually on a. I think Nick Rowe directed the cast.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
Yeah, and so in fact, Rick McCallum was the producer. He's one who went to Star Wars and the newer films. We were filming at the Lily Langtry Hotel in Bayswater.
Was that the pub scene then?
No, it's basically it was in the hotel foyer scene.
Oh, where they meet.
Where he meets the girl, but he walks through reception and he walks into the woman who's going to be going on, which was the English actress
Amanda Donohoe.
Yeah, Amanda Donohoe. We got on very well actually. She came to Planet Hollywood a few times. She was great fun. But anyway, I'm dressed. I actually wore my own clothes. I had to be an American tourist, so I'm wearing a blue seersucker jacket, Ivy League jacket. And I was much slimmer then. And I'm actually I had to walk to reception and book in, and I've got this camera on my shoulder and all this kind of stuff. And Oliver Reed walks in. Anyway, during the lunch break, at the back of the hotel was a bar. And so I went in the bar and had a beer. And there's Oliver Reed, and a few of the crew members, and everyone else had gone out to lunch and around to the big where they set up the food in the road, and used to eat on a big kind of coach. And so I'm there, and then Oliver just starts talking and doing stuff, and he says, "Boys, I'm going to show you something now. Don't be surprised." And then he pulls his flies down, pulls his penis out. It goes, "Look at my tattoo."
Oh my God!
Penis. It was. I don't know. I don't know if it was. I'm not sure. And I asked him, "Where did you get this done?" He said, He said, "I was very pissed, as you know, and I was actually in I think it was Thailand. It was for a bet, and he had
my God,
Thailand or Vietnam. He had a bet and had it done. He got it out. It was me and two of the other crew members really, and we had a beer, and we just laughed. What could you say? But Oliver was great. Sadly missed. Great, good friend of Hurricane Higgins and Keith Moon.
Yeah. Hey, it's a good thing Oliver didn't show up at Jack's dressing room that day. I'll just.
Well, they did work together on a movie, didn't they? In 1975, they were both in Tommy, The Who's Tommy.
That's right.
Both Nicholson and Reed. Yeah.
When I first went to Shepperton on Shining, I walked back at the back of the studio. There's offices, and that was the Who offices. Who I also later on became connected because I watched Quadrophenia. I knew the Who management before they did Quadrophenia because I worked in the music business. I had all these connections with the Who anyway. And the crazy thing is, I'm walking towards the offices, and on this this area, I could see these giant Marilyn Monroe figures, which were used in, the big Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, of course, from Tommy, from the church scene, yeah.
Yep.
That film where the woman in red that blows up her skirt, famous thing. Anyway, and I have another connection with Ken Russell because I years later I was in the place called Topo Gigio in Soho with my girlfriend Caroline at the time, about mid-80s. I was a massive fan of Ken Russell anyway, such a nice man. And everyone got him and Michael Winner confused because they were similar. But Ken Russell, I remember he was with this bunch of women, and I thought, I got my card because I always had this card, with me, trying to get work. So I followed Ken Russell into the toilet, and they had, made sure he finished his wee, and I was doing my wee, and I washed my hands. I said, Ken Russell. He goes, yes, darling. I said, I'm a massive fan. He goes, I'm an actor myself. I said, look, if I gave you my card, I'd love to work with you one of these days. Okay, darling, give me your card. Very nice. God, that was fantastic. If I had a camera then, or one of these iPhones, right. I don't have them then, I would have taken a picture. But then years later, we're talking about 10 years later, I'm working at Planet Hollywood for about 3 years, and he walked in with his son. I think his son's name's Hurricane or Ocean or something like that, and a little plump boy, and he walked in with him. I said, oh, Ken, how are you? So every time he asked for me, and I gave him a table, and I said, Ken, one day, I said, look, I've got to be honest with you, years ago, I followed you into the toilet. He goes, darling, that's not, that all actors try that thing on. It's not a problem, my dear. Don't worry about it. And he said, other things, to get work. So that was it, really. But, that's another connection with Ken Russell, because he was a wonderful person, too.
But I have to ask you to bring it back to Kubrick if you attended the Shining premiere. What did you think of it?
The Shining premiere, actually I never went to the premiere, obviously, but when the film came out, I saw it at the Warner West End, and because of having read the book, when I saw the movie, I was kind of disappointed.
Interesting.
I only because that was a very, that's when I saw it a couple of times just to see what I felt. But I always, because there's bits where it goes to black screen, it has a title across, and it goes quiet, and where you cut it. But obviously, because when I see a film, I think, well, it reminds me of being on the movie with Jack and all the good, great times I had on being on that movie, and also Scatman Crothers and all the others. And also seeing myself, oh, there I am, split second.
Yeah.
And because you forget, because you're watching, you're so into the film that I kind of enjoyed the film. I did think it was a great movie. And there's several old friends I spotted a few. That scene in the scene where the person's dressed as a dog going down on someone. I knew those people, and the other guy is a gay guy I used to know who had the cut across the head. I worked with him. He's also in Victoria.
That's Norman Gay, is it? Norman Gay?
Gay, yeah, lovely guy, Norman. And exactly. But no, I was disappointed, really, sadly, being a massive
a fan of the book. Yeah, but did you ever at least begin to view the two as separate pieces of work? Absolutely. Did you ever change your mind about the?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because we all know. The thing is, in the book, as you know, the maze, all the animals become alive, don't they? And it's
the topiaries, the topiary animals, right?
Yeah, they all come alive, and there's that more thing. And obviously, your imagination, when you're reading something, it becomes more.
Wow. So, Derek, that's just all so amazing. I can't thank you enough. I speak on behalf of Stephen and all of our listeners when I say it's just been a real treat to have you as a guest and share all of these amazing stories and bring it all back to Kubrick. Like I was saying, the connections. So we've kept you so long, and you've been so gracious. I just want to say thank you from all of us, and definitely hope we get to chat again soon, my man.
Yeah, I'd like to actually, if I may, dedicate it to my two sons, or they're still alive, by the way, Christopher Lucas Lyons and Thomas Sean Zen Lyons, who are sadly living with my ex-wife. But I'd like to dedicate this interview to them, and hopefully they hear it in the future.
Oh, they will. Hi, Christopher. Hi, Thomas. From all of us at Kubrick's Universe.
Yeah, thank you.
Your dad is awesome. Thank you, Derek.
I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for interviewing little me.
Listen, if you'd like to join us, the Stanley Kubrick Appreciation Society is not only like the world's largest social media group dedicated to his legacy. Stephen founded it. I couldn't be more proud to be involved with it. It's the joy of my life. And you would be treated so well in the group. It's just such a wonderful group of really engaged people. Yeah. And every post alternates between like insightful and fascinating to laugh out loud, hilarious.
Oh yeah, great.
We have such a great community. It'd be awesome if you wanted to join in.
Yeah. Just send me send me a link. I'll do that. But listen, I have to go now because I need to go to the toilet now.
No worries.
Appreciate your interest in me. Thank you so much.
We spoke to Derek on the 20th of February 2018. You will find Derek online at his website, dereklyonssite.com. That's Lyons spelled Lyons. He's also on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and Instagram. And why not take another look at The Shining to see if you can spot Derek in the Overlook Hotel. Thanks to Mark Lentz, who helped us with research for this episode. Mark runs the New York chapter of SCAS. Thanks to Chris Lentz for telling us who is Stanley Kubrick. And of course, thanks to our very own host, the marvellous Mr. Jason Furlong. Don't forget to check in to the Stanley Kubrick Appreciation Society on Facebook. Please rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts and let us know what you think about the show. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Kubrick's Universe, and thanks for listening. I'm Stephen Rigg. Tatty bye.
It's Kubrick's universe. We just live in it.
We have taken very thorough precautions in this podcast against broadcasting anything which might only be attributed to human error.
Thank you for listening to the Stanley Kubrick Podcast. Come back soon.